The calendar template I provided for use in the print module is designed to utilize images that have a 3:2 aspect ratio. This 3:2 relationship approximates the 35mm film aspect ratio. Aspect ratio is the term used to describe the proportional relationship between width and height. 3:2 is also the aspect ratio most modern digital SLRs create as files. Generally what you see through your viewfinder and eventually what you will be editing within Lightroom. So why is this important at all? Well, many, possibly most photographers have learned to use their viewfinders as an aid to composing images in camera. Although I will sometimes experiment within Lightroom, choosing the 1:1 or square aspect ratio, which mimics the compositional cues provided by working with my old 2¼ or 6x6 Rolleiflex, I rarely crop my images in post-production, yet I do on occasion. And so, because an optimal crop is such an important element in each photograph's final interpretation, I will show you how to adapt my templates to work with images that do not conform to this 3:2 aspect ratio as we move along in the screencast. You should already have the 12 months of the year as individual JPEGs inside a collection titled 2014 Calendars. These are the background for each of the individual calendar pages you will be producing to complete your CD jewel case calendar set. You will need 12 favorite images inside the collection as well. Take some focused time to gather the images you want to illustrate your calendars. They are likely to be spread out across your entire catalog of photographs. An easy way for you to amass a series for final consideration, what you will eventually winnow down to your final 12, is the trick I showed you in the first screencast for this project. Move through your files, and when you see one you think is worthy of final selection, click on it first, then drop down to your Collections panel, hover your cursor over the 2014 calendar collection, and without clicking on the collection title, simply right-click or control-click on a Mac keyboard to bring up this dialog. Choose Add Selected Photo to this collection, and the image will be there when you return from the process of running through enough favorite photos to make your final selections. I designed the print module template for this calendar with 2 cells. The bottom cell is set to the maximum size I am able to fit a trimmed card inside of the jewel cases I purchased. The top cell is set to dimensions that utilize the bottom cell's width in order for me to figure out what height I should have in order to provide that 3:2 aspect ratio. Now let's see how to crop and format photographs for the image cells. Here I am in the collection I have set aside for the calendar, with 12 images plus the 12 calendar pages. I'm going to select an image here, then press the D key to move the photo into the Develop module. Next I'm going to press the R key or simply click on the Crop tool at the top of the right column here to open its Options panel. As you can see here in the Aspect line it says Original, and the aspect ratio is currently locked. I'm going to unlock this restriction by clicking on the lock icon. But first, note the bounding box that surrounds the image. It is visible when the crop tool is active. The bounding box is in place, tightly surrounding the image as I shot it, the original aspect ratio my camera generated. Now watch as I pop open a series of options here and select 2:3, 4:6. The bounding box doesn't move. This is because my camera obviously shoots to that 3:2 or 2:3 aspect ratio. Notice that as soon as I select the 2:3 option though, the lock here is once again closed. I do not care to crop this image. I like the composition as I set it up in camera through my viewfinder. Let's move on. The next image I'll select is this diptych. Look at it. Once again the aspect ratio of an image, this time a photo illustration instead of a master file generated by my camera, happens to have a 3:2 aspect ratio native to the file as I created it in Photoshop quite a few years ago. Now before beginning to crop with the 2:3 aspect ratio selected, make sure the lock is closed to ensure your preferred crop ratio is maintained throughout the process with the image on deck. Note also that before committing to the crop, I can move the image around by placing my cursor above it, then click and hold down the mouse to move within the active box and make changes as you see here. It is only when I hit the return key that my new crop is committed. Here we are back in the print module. Down in the film strip I have my 12 photos and 12 months of 2014. In the first screencast I showed you how to import the template we need for building those CD jewel case calendars. Select it now here in the User Templates folder of the template browser. I'm going to show you how simple this makes the process of building the calendar series. But first, let's zoom in so we can see what's going on a bit easier than with these 6 pages all laid out as the complete print package, almost looking more like thumbnails here in the content window. At the top of the left column is the Zoom Page control. Click on it and our first US letter or A4 size page fills the content window. Real quick as we begin here, I need to address the issue of measurement. If you do not see the rulers at the top and along the left of the content window stage, then drop down from the View menu to Show Rulers. Working here in Arizona in the United States, I have my ruler set to inches. Now for the rest of the known universe, which uses the metric system of measure, you'll want to make sure that your rulers are set to millimeters. Just float your cursor over either the horizontal or vertical ruler, right-click or control-click on a Mac keyboard and select millimeters from the pop-up series of options. One other quick change. It's over in the right column. Just to make things less cluttered, close all the panels except for the Cells panel. Let's first drag the 12 months into the 12 bottom cells in this project template. Just click to select and drag each of the month JPEGs into the bottom portion of each layout like this. Note that as your cursor moves into the cell outline, it changes to yellow. When you see this occur, simply release your mouse and the month will snap into place. If you make a mistake and drop the month inside the top cell instead, you can always utilize the keyboard shortcut Command-Z on a Mac, Control-Z on a PC, or go up to the Edit menu and drop down to the Undo option. You may be asking yourself how to move forward now through each of the 6 pages that make up this 12-month calendar template. Just hold down the Command key on a Mac, the Control key on a PC, and then press the right arrow on your keyboard. Now we'll go back to January in our template. It is important for you to see the photos you intend to use here well enough for you to make sense of what you saved to work with on your calendar series. So if the thumbnails are too small, and I normally have my own film strips set to a minimal size where I can just normally discern one image from the other, hover your cursor above the top line of the film strip and this scaling icon will appear. Just click, and while holding down your mouse, drag upwards to increase the film strip size to its maximum. I'm going to select the image I want for this month and pay close attention to my drag and drop process. Wait to release your depressed mouse until the topmost cell changes to yellow. This is important. You need to pay attention to this image drop process because if you release your depressed mouse too soon, look what happens. Thank goodness for the Undo command. You will quickly get the hang of it if you pay attention to what you're doing. But what if you've chosen one or several images that do not precisely fit within the image cell dimensions I set up to that 3:2 aspect ratio for this template? Are you stuck or out of luck for having chosen these images as a calendar illustration? Not at all. I'll switch here to another collection I've set up for this example. Note that by looking at the images in the film strip, you can see that there are quite a few of these that do not appear to conform to that all-important aspect ratio I've been talking about throughout this project. Let's see what happens when I start working with this collection instead of the last one, where all the images have been saved to conform to the 3:2 aspect ratio. I'll select this first image, drag and drop into the topmost cell. Look. The cell dimensions baked into the template's recipe has cropped this long, narrow image. And notice if I attempt to somehow scale or reposition the image within the cell, it instead jumps outside of the template setup. So how do we proceed? Go to the Cell panel to the right column of the workspace. Look at this. Lock to Photo Aspect Ratio. Click on the little gray box to produce a check mark and watch what happens to the problematic image. It maintains the vertical dimensions assigned to its cell, yet the horizontal dimensions have nearly doubled, and the cell has jumped its parent, the calendar cell, below. We need to fix that. Note that the image cell appears to be anchored yet to the top and bottom and left side. Lightroom is trying to cooperate with us. I'm going to grab the right edge of the cell's bounding box and pull left till it snaps back into place along the right edge of the bottom calendar cell. Lightroom has scaled the image so that the entire photograph is set inside our layout, maintaining an equal amount of white space along the top and bottom as well. What a convenience. Let's try another one of the pictures here, the next one in line. Okay, the lock to photo aspect ratio option is still active, but this time because the image I chose is a square and taller than the image cell's original settings, because Lightroom wants to provide my content full advantage of at least one of its dimensions, this time its width, the topside image cell pushes down into the calendar content below. But watch what happens when I drag up with the cell's bounding box handle. As I pull up from the bottom edge, the image is being scaled down in equal amounts from both the left and right sides of the parent cell containing the month below. Now pay special attention to this part here. Each of the top image cells have these dimensions baked into the template recipe. Just by adding my template to your user templates has created two convenient cell sizing options, saved inside the Add to Package section of the Cells panel. It reads like this with your ruler set to inches, like this when set to millimeters. Use this preset as the perfect reminder so that as you are dragging up on the bounding box, you stop at the precise measurement represented in that new cell preset. Always keep this rule of thumb in mind when working with this particular template. If an image is resized within the top illustration cell by the Lock to Photo Aspect Ratio option, and the cell pushed down over the month's title, perhaps even into the numbered days, then first click on the bottom handle of the bounding box to engage, then keep a sharp eye on the height scale's numeric value as you pull up on the handle, scaling the image to the cell's intended preset size. Look here. The cell's height is now equal to the preset equation, and by clicking off the page to deselect the cell I adjusted, you can see that I have established my intended bit of breathing space between the illustration and the month's title. Review your final layout here in the Print module. When you're happy with what you see, close the Cells panel and open the Print Job panel. Now, two ways to go here, but this screencast is already long enough, so I'll stop now, and in the third and final movie I will explain the print job setup, export, and trim out suggestions for you to complete the process of making these tiny calendars.